India, a diverse country of more than 1.4 billion people, where you can prove your identity digitally, receive government benefits directly into a bank account, send money instantly by scanning a QR code, and access hundreds of official documents without carrying a single piece of paper. And this isn't infrastructure designed only for wealthy people in India's biggest cities. It was built to operate at the scale of an entire country. Welcome to episode 2 of the India Advantage. This is a story of how India created one of the world's most ambitious digital public infrastructure ecosystem and why countries around the world are now studying the India model. And this story begins long before UPI. For decades, interacting with the Indian state largely meant paperwork. Certificates, license, ration cards, bank documents, and government forms often meant physical documents, government offices, and long administrative processes. Digitization began changing this. But one of the biggest breakthroughs came after India had a fundamental problem. How do you establish a portable digital identity at the scale of more than a billion people? The answer was Aadhaar. On 29 September 2010, India issued its first Aadhaar number. Aadhaar created a unique 12-digit identity number based on a resident's demographic and biometric information. And the scale became extraordinary. By March 2026, more than 144 crore Aadhaar numbers have been generated. But identity alone wasn't enough. People also needed access to financial system. And that's where another part of India's digital transformation enters the story. Jan Dhan. Launched in 2014, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana massively expanded access to basic bank accounts. By 1st of July 2026, 58.63 crore Jan Dhan accounts have been opened, holding more than 3.08 lakh crore rupees in deposits. And most importantly, 78% of those accounts are in rural and semi-urban areas. Combine bank accounts with Aadhaar and mobile connectivity and you get what became known as JAM Trinity. Jandhan, Aadhaar and mobile. Identity, banking, connectivity. Three layers that made it possible to deliver finance and government services digitally at enormous scale. And then came the technology that made India's digital transformation visible almost everywhere. UPI, the Unified Payments Interface was launched in 2016 by the National Payments Corporation of India. Its power came from interoperability. Instead of being trapped inside one bank or one payment company, a customer using one UPI app could pay someone using another app connected to another bank. A street vendor could display a QR code, you could scan it, and money could move directly between bank accounts in seconds. No cash, no check, and no card terminal required. The barrier to accepting digital payments suddenly became extraordinarily low. And then adoption exploded. In May 2026 alone, UPI processed 23.2 billion transactions. That's more than 750 million transactions every day on an average. And the value? Almost 30 trillion rupees or 29.9 lakh crore rupees in a single month. Think about that. A payment system that didn't exist a decade ago was processing more than 23 billion transactions every month. But UPI is only one part of the story because India wasn't simply building digital apps, it was building digital rails. Think of it like a highway. You don't need the organization that builds the highway to manufacture every car traveling on it. You create shared infrastructure and standards, and different businesses can build services on top. That's broadly the philosophy behind India's digital public infrastructure or DPI. Aadhaar provides identity infrastructure, UPI provides payment infrastructure, and then there's another layer, documents. In 2015, India launched DigiLocker. Instead of repeatedly producing physical copies of driving license, vehicle registration, academic certificate, or other official record, DigiLocker allows authenticated electric documents to be issued, stored, and accessed digitally. Look at the scale. By March 2026, DigiLocker had approximately 67.6 crore users, and more than 950 crore documents have been issued through this system. That's not simply putting paperwork online, it's changing how citizens interact with the state. And India is trying a similar idea with commerce. Enter ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce. Traditional e commerce usually works through a platform. Buyers and sellers meet inside one company's ecosystem. ONDC is trying something different. It is essentially an open protocol designed to allow buyer applications and seller applications to interact across a network. The idea is that commerce should potentially become interoperable in a way that payments become interoperable through UPI. A small business shouldn't necessarily have to build its own sophisticated e commerce infrastructure to become digitally discoverable. And ONDC says its network is already present across more than 60 cities. And the rest of the world has noticed. As of 2026, India has signed agreements or MOUs with 24 countries for cooperation around India's stack and digital public infrastructure. These partnerships cover areas such as digital identity, payments, data exchange, and digital service delivery. And that's an interesting reversal. For decades, India was primarily thought of as a country importing advanced technologies while exporting software talent. Now, India is increasingly exporting technology architecture and digital governance ideas. Why? Because India had to build these systems in an unusually different environment. More than 1.4 billion people, enormous differences in income and digital literacy, 22 constituently recognized scheduled languages and hundreds of other languages and dialects, millions of small businesses, huge difference between urban and rural India, and historically hundreds of millions of people with limited access to formal banking. Yet by March 2026, India had approximately 1.09 billion internet subscribers. Cheap mobile data and affordable smartphones provided connectivity. Aadhaar provided digital identity. Jan Dhan expanded bank account access. UPI connected those bank accounts to instant payments. DigiLocker digitized documents, and ONDC is attempting to create open digital commerce. The real power isn't any one system. It is what happens when they start working together. But the story has another side. A digital system operating at this scale of a billion people creates enormous responsibility. There are serious questions around privacy, cybersecurity, fraud, data protection, and digital exclusion. Biometric authentication can fail. People can use data in a wrong way and lose access to phones. Digital scams can target less experienced users, and connectivity and digital literacy remains uneven. So, India's challenge is no longer simply can India digitize? It's can India digitize securely and inexclusively without leaving people behind? And now comes the next frontier: artificial intelligence. Imagine AI powered government services available across Indian languages, farmers receiving personalized advice, students receiving individualized education, small businesses getting access to tools previously available only to large corporations. AI could eventually sit on top of the digital infrastructure India has spent the last decades building. And that's why India's digital transformation matters beyond India. India's model isn't simply state run technology, and it isn't simply private technology companies building closed ecosystems. It's an experiment in shared digital infrastructure combined with private innovation. Public institutions and ecosystem participants create common rails and standards. Banks, fintech companies, startups, and other businesses build services around them. and hundreds of millions of people use the resulting ecosystem. That model is becoming a form of Indian technological soft power because India is no longer exporting only software engineers. It is increasingly exporting digital infrastructure ideas. And now other countries are studying and, in some cases, adopting parts of this model. India's digital revolution, therefore, isn't simply the story of people replacing cash with QR codes. It's the story of a country attempting something much bigger, building digital infrastructure that can operate at the scale of 1.4 billion people. And the transformation isn't finished. The first phase connected hundreds of millions of Indians to mobile networks and internet. The next built digital identity and expanded banking. Then came instant payments and digital services. And the next phase could combine all of that with artificial intelligence. If the Green Revolution helped India overcome food scarcity and its pharmaceutical revolution helped make medicines affordable around the world, India's digital revolution could create another India advantage. Digital infrastructure built at Indian scale that parts of the world may increasingly want to learn from.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.